Good evening. Today's episode is in part brought to you by a mug that says, may contain alcohol. Last time I checked, water does not contain alcohol. So drink water out of this cup. Don't drink anything else out of this cup because it's unhealthy. So today's episode is going to be about quitting my job and exploring dingy alleyways of Melbourne. So in the future, I think I want to make more of these videos that are halfway sort of like trying to tell a story through little clips that I've captured throughout the day, and halfway just kind of like exploring some thoughts, some theories of like literary theories of reality, whatever that is. And for that very reason, I invested in a little side camera, because carrying this thing around the city, it's ridiculous and it looks stupid. So let's rewind the clock to, a few weeks before the recording of today's video. I've came to a realization that YouTube as a career is actually a little more viable than my day job, which is like working at the bookstore. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that job and I absolutely love spending time at the store. It's just that I found myself just like craving to get back into the YouTube business when I'm actually at that job. So being a person that doesn't really want to half-ass anything, when you have a side gig going on and you have a job going on, you sort of want to like, maybe I should half-ass my job and, put more time towards my side thing, or maybe I should half-ass the side thing and put more time into the job thing. So I was really stuck in between these two, to the point where I couldn't really put too much time towards YouTube and couldn't really put too much attention and energy into the day job. So I thought to myself, maybe it's time. Maybe it's that time that I should actually leave the job and just like dedicate myself wholeheartedly to this YouTube thing. So last Wednesday I typed up my resignation email and sent it to the boss. And I was informed that the following Saturday was going to be my last shift. Really mixed feelings, because I really love the damn store. But then again, it's just kind of like, content's kind of more important. So yesterday, which was Saturday, when I pulled into the car park of the shopping mall where the bookstore was, I had a distinct sense that that was the last day ever. That was the last day of working a job. After getting off that shift, there was no going back. After getting off that shift, I would become a vagabond. And my full-time job, in a sense, was to capture life, was to capture everything as an observer. Instead of being a part of the motion, I was outside of the motion. If that makes any sense. See, if you hold a job, you're so used to like just going to work, working there, and getting back home, and then getting your rest, and then going there again. There's this entire cycle that begins to play itself out. And it's a really scary thought to break out of that cycle, because ever since high school, we are so accustomed to just kind of like going somewhere, doing something, and then getting back to a state of rest. So upon walking out of that door after my last shift, that was the realization. I can no longer cling on to some arbitrary circle of life. I can no longer rely on routines to, get the paycheck, to know that I'm gonna have money for grocery for the following week. And there's no security of location anymore, because literally with this YouTube thing, I can work anywhere. So in a sense, tramping the streets after walking out of that door became my full-time job. So I thought it was appropriate to mark this location of breaking out of the loop with a little trip into the city. And conveniently, I was going to catch up with one of my friends in the city, so that kind of worked out. So I got into a train, it started raining and it stopped raining, and it ended up at Flinders Street Station. With nothing to do, I just watched people. Business people, fancy people, edgy teenagers. I've watched them all. Sadly, I didn't have my notebook with me, so I couldn't write anything. But it was a worthwhile experience, and it felt kind of weird to just be like the observing eye of a crowd, because usually when you're in a city, the pace sort of pulls you into it, and it's really, really tiring for you to be a mere observer of the entire scene. And walking through the streets becomes this process of just like getting from point A to point B, to the point where your brain isn't even turned on. So you end up missing so much that a city has to offer. All the landmarks in Melbourne, all the cathedrals and churches, and even Flinders Street Station itself, they are just magnificent pieces of architecture. In fact, when I finally caught up with Callum, which is a friend of mine, I just said to him, just take a look at the amazing architecture. We're just casually walking by this magnificent train station. We're just casually passing by this cathedral. I reckon it's kind of the same with people that are living in in Paris or something, or in New York or something, because you're so desensitized to your surroundings, because the pace of the city is so rapid. You just get completely sucked into the emotions to the point where you don't even notice any of the details. So that was a little realization. And after having that realization, I thought to myself, why don't I just try to observe everything, with the subtleties of getting onto a train, observing the city skyline, watching how the sun sets at Docklands. All of these are beautiful locations, but the pace really distracts people away from all these beautiful details. That's probably why I like art. The artsy-fartsy artistic types, they are at the same time a part of the crowd, yet, you know, like separated from the crowd. They're watching eyes looming above this busyness that's going on in the cities. And also, in a sense, in the city, there are hidden corners. There are a lot of dingy corners of the city that probably no one ever visits, which is going to bring us to a little adventure that Cal and I took. How are you feeling tonight?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Pretty good.
You're nodding focus. The great Melburnian ordering experience.
Yes.
Get a meal.
No, I don't like
Make it a meal! God damn it, you're too modest. So after having a little dinner and a little drink and whatnot, Callum pulled out his phone and he basically said to me, hey, do you know what geocaching is? I had no idea. I'm basically a grandpa when it comes down to technology. I'm still using this iPhone 7, which is like on the verge of exploding. But he basically just said to me, do you know what geocaching is? And I had no idea. And he said, you know, all around the world, there are all these hidden containers hidden away in some of the most hidden corners of the city. I was intrigued and I didn't have anything to do. So I said, yeah, let's go find some of these hidden containers and let's find out. So we ended up skipping a few streets and then we ended up in this really dingy back alleyway. Dude, what the
Yes, we're in a very sketchy...
Very sketchy.
The last one we went to, we didn't.
Yeah.
But we went and found another one for another 500 meters away.
Which kind of reminded me of like the back streets of Paris from George Orwell's Down and Out in Paris and London or something. You know the places where like kitchen workers smoke cigarettes? Yeah. Those kind of dingy alleyways where a person could just literally show up and stab you with a knife. So we eventually found a container behind this electric box, which is kind of weird.
Usually there's just a bit of paper that you write in your notebook on. A note name on. Wow, I'm not really thinking tonight.
So we just logged our names on there. 5th of December. The day that I quit my job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's never written in history.
Yeah, man. That was basically the conclusion to the night, essentially. My camera is about to run out of battery, so I'm gonna stop this video right here before I lose this footage. Expect future videos to be kind of like this, storytelling and sort of like my own crazy thoughts about the city, reality, being an artist, and whatnot. Thank you for watching this episode. It's a bit of an awkward end because this camera is about to die. Anyway, I will see you in the next entry.